Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode at Station Road. Today we're going to change it up a wee bit and do a little bit of practical model railroading and also a little bit of a price comparison to some ballasting products and also techniques. So really this will be actually one of my first videos where I'm going to take on the challenge of demonstrating some how-to components, and we'll see where it leads. So stay tuned, and I will get myself ready and set up. There's 1,000,001 different techniques for ballasting, and everyone has their own different way of doing the ballasting side of things. So of course there is no right or wrong way of doing ballasting, and this is the way I approach it. So I won't begin ballasting my actual layout. What I'm going to do is a short section of track, which here we have here, which I will attach to a piece of timber and make it into just a small section of display track. Now another part of this video is actually doing some price comparison on ballast, and I have come across a significant price difference in how ballasting can be approached. So over here we have I actually bought this deliberately just to do this, which might seem silly, but here we have essentially a standard Woodland Scenic medium ballast. Buff is the buff medium, and you know, there's quite a bit of ballast in there. That will probably get you quite a reasonable way. It probably wouldn't do my entire layout, but there's a reasonable amount in here. Now here in New Zealand, $21 for that. That would roughly equate to about 10 or 11 pounds in the UK. Whether or not that's how much these are over there, but so that's for that. There's $21 for that. Now I use this, and this is a different alternative. And it is a big bag of ground up pumice from your local hardware store. Now this is fine. You can get coarse and you can get fine. This whole bag cost $9.50. Now of course it is not a consistent grain as this. There is large bits in here, there is finer bits in here. So with that, and with the help of some sieves, we can actually sieve through and actually get out several different granule sizes, which is actually quite good, because I've actually used the really fine granules that come from this for such things as actually tracks, like walking tracks or farm tracks and things like that. So it actually it has multiple uses. There is also probably, you'll find in here, I sometimes find in here quite large chunks that have accidentally got into the manufacturing process, and of course they make brilliant little boulders and rocks. So you know, this to me is just seems like a much more sensible on the wallet way to go. Now the interesting thing is I actually did a price comparison in terms of actually what you get. So according to my scales, this is 800 grams or 0.8 kgs. This bag of pumice is 3.8 kgs. So essentially what it works out to is, for the Woodland Scenics, it works out at $26 per kg, and that would be maybe 12 to 13 pounds per kg if you're in the UK. this bag of pumice works out at $2.50 a kg, or basically just a little bit over £1 per kg. So the price difference is absolutely staggering, and of course this whole bag will do a very large layout, and it'll well and truly cover my layout when I eventually get round to doing the ballasting side of things. And in terms of colour, it's really it's very similar. I'll do a close-up of this so that you can, I mean, I actually prefer the pumice because it's actually got a little bit of tonal difference in it, but I'll do a close-up shot of that now. So as you can see here, in terms of granule size, they're very, very similar. You'll just notice that if I zoom in, if I come over here, you'll see there's larger granules in there, which actually work out really nicely for boulders that might be cast to the side of the tracks, or even at the bottom of a cliff face. That sort of granule size is quite good, but the tonal variation is good as well. It actually works out quite. It looks reasonably realistic on the layout, and for the price, it makes so much difference. It almost makes me wonder, and I'm sorry for bashing Woodland Scenics because they do make some absolutely fantastic products, but I really can't seem to figure out or understand how this container of granules can be essentially 10 times the price. So yeah, it's really quite peculiar. I'll actually just swing around over here because many years ago, this is the pumice that I did quite a few years ago for some track ballasting. So I mean, that's how it comes out. This has been weathered in here. I've ripped some track up here. This is going to be my redundant or semi-axed branch line eventually. So but that is how it comes out, and it's pretty respectable looking ballast. So there we have it. So I think now what we'll do is I'll set up and get back to you in a few minutes, and we will go through making ourselves a little display plinth with the ballast. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ballast half the track with the pumice from the hardware store, and the other half I will do in Woodland Scenics. And we'll actually see how the two of them stack up against each other. So bear with me, I'll be back in a few minutes. Right, okay, so here we have our piece of timber. Basically I'm just using up scraps of material that I've had lying about. But the first thing I'm going to do is put a base coat on here. It's important really, I think, to do a base coat before you do any ballasting, because otherwise the 50-50 glue mix will tend to actually go all the way through the ballast and then start actually soaking into the timber. So I think it's important that there is a base coat on there, possibly even if you've actually got a cork or some form of underlay as well, maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't use underlay. It's just I just put it down to laziness. I just think it's just too much effort. And once you've got the ballast in there, there's really not a lot of difference. And of course, it's not a mainline high speed layout that I run. I think we don't have the nice sort of heaped up ballast mounds either side of the track. So that's it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly whiz over a coat of base paint, and I've got a tiny little bit here, and I basically go to the recycling depot and just buy leftover paint that people have not finished. And maybe even if I have to mix it together with some other colours, and it works out quite well. So we're going to do the edges as well. So since I'm making this into a plinth of sorts that I could have display a locomotive on it, maybe I could take it inside and have it on the shelf. And I've got these little just these little things here so that I can actually, and I'm not worried about getting paint on the underside of this thing, because this side is my painting side and the other side is the for cutting and measuring and so forth, so I'm not too fussed about that. This doesn't need to be perfect. Doesn't matter which way the brush strokes go, it's just to block and seal in the timber. So I'm going to run out of finger space, so I'm just going to move that down to there. We'll get that into there, and you can't see that, so never mind, but I'm painting the end of the timber. And the good thing is it's about 30 degrees in here, so this paint is going to dry in 2 seconds flat. We'll let that dry and I will be back in a few minutes. Right, here we are. We now have a dry piece of timber with a primer base coat on it. Now the first thing we'll do is we'll attach this track. What I'll do is just I'll pin it down. Generally the process that I do for track and even on the layout as well is pin it down, but then once all that ballasting is all finished and it's completely dry, then I pull those pins out, and I think I might even actually putty up the holes once it's so I'm just using a pair of needle nose pliers and I'm doing this very quickly, so this is just really a demonstration. It doesn't need to be anything too fancy. So we'll just poke those in there. This is just a scrap piece of track. It's actually not a very good bit of track actually. It was some very budget flexi track that was not the best quality actually, so I've ended up actually ripping it all up and not using it. Right, so there we go. We now have that in place. I probably really should put something on the end, or otherwise I'm going to have ballast spilling off, but I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Now here, this is the ballast that I've previously sieved. So using these different sieves, I've got the ballast down, got it down to a grain, or a grain size that I think works really well with the with 00 gauge within that scale, and also you get that sort of nice tone. So it's not all the same colour. See, this is all the same tone, which you might get in some cases, but I'm pretty sure, like even on the railways here in New Zealand, the ballast is certainly not all just one solid colour. There is multiple tones in it. So yeah. So that's the ballast there. So we'll start by putting this down. Now I prepped a few things prior to this. First of all, we have here 50/50 PVA glue, water with a few drops of dishwashing liquid in it. I use these little things here. I actually prefer using this to a squirter bottle, because the squirter bottle sometimes you can get because of the dishwashing liquid you kind of get suds or bubbles that come through, whereas this it seems to be a little bit better. We have here we have a spray bottle with just some water in it, and this is what I'll use to soak the track before I put the fluid on, the adhesive fluid. So I noticed that some people use like a full-sized spray bottle that you might find for cleaning products, but I usually find that they're so strong and so powerful that they actually blow the ballast away from the track, whereas this thing here, which is more like I guess more of a personal hygiene type spray thing. I think I actually bought this off online. You can get them really cheap, but it actually pumps out a very fine mist, and it doesn't blast it out so much that it actually blasts all your ballast away that you've actually spent the last 5 minutes neatly brushing and getting into place. So so I find these a lot better. And then we have here a teaspoon, which which essentially is what I use to distribute the ballast. I don't use the ballast, you can get the ballast distributing, whatever you call them, the little units that run along the track, but they're not much use on points, and if your layout is full of points, which generally they are, to me they just seem pointless. So a spoon is what I use. So we'll start with the Pumice. This is the $2.50 per kg ballast, and we'll just sprinkle this down, and I'll just load it up into the track. We'll go halfway because I'll do the other half in the other one. So we'll get that in there. It's going to make a mess, but that's what ballasting is all about. And then we'll grab ourselves a nice fine brush. Now I've got a whole bunch of brushes here, as you can see. There's all sorts of soft, and I usually find actually don't use a stiff bristled brush. Use a nice soft one, because the stiff bristled brush is actually going to flick the ballast in all directions, whereas the soft one just kind of more or less pushes the ballast. So I'm using this one here. What is it? It's all worn off, so I wouldn't know, but it's very soft and fluffy. So we're going this way, so we're just going to go through the inside of the rails first, and generally when you do that, that pushes the ballast off the outside of the rail as well while you're doing it. So I'll just bring this lot back the other way, because of course you're going to, if you go in one direction, you're actually going to push it all away from areas that might not have actually received enough ballast. So I'm just bringing that back up that way. Now I'm going to use a technique that I've seen other people use. Some people don't recommend it, but I'm going to give it a go, which is to tap the rails. That settles the ballast, which of course is actually what they do in a That doesn't look too bad. Now I'm just actually going to use a tiny little one, oh, where are we? These are just a little wee brush here that's just going to get some of that's out of on these sleepers here. Actually, and I've actually think that tapping is actually very good. It doesn't need to be tapped otherwise you're just going to knock everything away. It's actually just a light tap, almost like a vibration that you're putting through the. Right, okay, so I'll just clean off some of the excess on here, and there we go. Right, now, so the next step is to soak this. And I think you probably really needs a reasonable sort of soaking. Now, so if we get the mister, I'm actually about maybe a foot away from the actual ballast, so I'm actually not down too close, because this mister, you don't want it to be so close that you're actually going to just blow all the ballast off the track. So that's a pretty good soaking. A little bit there, so we'll just give this a bit of a stir, and the idea is to go neatly one side inside of the rail, other side of the rail, and then we go on the outside of the rail, outside of the other rail, Now, depending on what time of the year you want, we're coming into summer here in New Zealand, so ballasting is a good time. This is ballasting season, because there's just so much moisture used in the process. This should dry out hopefully within, it might be dry within 24 hours. Right, so that is the pumice, the cost effective ballast. So now let's try the Woodland Scenics. So we've got here, we need to open this up. It's got the seal on it, I imagine. Yes, there's a seal on here. So we'll get that out. Now, I don't know what this is actually really made out of. It doesn't say what it actually consists of. But the interesting thing is, it feels about as light as pumice does. So it makes me wonder. So there's our, well, I mean, we can pour it out there, and then you've got a shaker that side, which is no use for ballasting. So it'll be a case of just pour this out, and I might as well, no, I'll just pour some out. This is kind of, this stuff scatters more. It sort of bounces, which is interesting. Now, brush. So we're just going to shove it into here. So that's our, push it over that edge. We'll actually push this all this way, so we can get stuff out to that edge. So you sort of got to go backwards and forwards a bit with this stuff, actually, because it sort of bounces around a bit. Because it's quite uniformed, I think, the actual granules, they're almost sort of like round granules, that they seem to want to kind of go flicking everywhere, which is interesting. Now, I'm not rowing about. I know that some people do the, in order to conserve ballast, they will put a stocking over the end of a vacuum cleaner pipe and suck this excess ballast up once it's dry. I'm not going to worry about that for this particular operation, and considering I'm going to use ballast that's all of $2.50 a kg, or maybe £1.20, say, for a kg of ballast, I don't think you really need to worry about saving it, to be honest. Or what's left of it you brush off, and you can pop it in your garden to help the drainage of the roots of your plants, because that's actually what its originally intended use is. Yeah. Right, now we'll give this a tap. See what this does. It's sort of working. If there's any stray granules on the sleepers, you can actually just scrape them off with like a little screwdriver or something like that afterwards, because this has sort of become a little bit annoying, this part here. So I'm just going to leave that and scrape those ones off at the end. So let's give it a spray. Right, give this a stir. And it's basically the same process again. That should be it. So now all we have to do is wait for it to dry. I I will feature this back through in another video probably next week, because after this is all dry, we're going to use some of this. This is just a grass mat, like static grass, but it's already on a sheet. I can't remember who makes it. So I've got some scraps of that which I'm going to pop on the edges here, and then I'll do the edges black or something like that around the edges here, and it should look pretty good. So essentially this video is really about the price comparison between these two items. So this is Woodland Scenics, which works out at $26.25 a kg, or the pumice from your local hardware store, fine grain pumice, which works out at $2.50 a kg. So 10 times the price than this, and I actually think the pumice looks really good. Whatever you don't use, pop it in your pot plants. It helps with drainage. So hope you found that useful, and I'm hoping that maybe you can actually find this type of pumice. I'll actually put it's a product that's made here in New Zealand, and it's used for in pot plants, I believe. I'll put that up as a link to where you can actually get it here in New Zealand. I'm pretty sure there'd have to be equivalents of this elsewhere around the world. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that for today, and thank you everyone for watching. And also a big huge thank you to all the most recent or new subscribers to my channel. It's really positive. And just a reminder to those who haven't subscribed, please do, and also click the bell icon for notifications on upcoming videos. So farewell and take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Thank you.